Dallas is getting ready to welcome the world for the love of one game, soccer. Put yourself in the middle of all the passion, energy, and celebration of FIFA World Cup 2026 by setting up your base camp in the heart of downtown. You'll score more award-winning cuisine, world-class shopping, and warm, welcoming Dallas hospitality. Stay longer and play longer at visitdallas.com. I'm Aislinn Green, and this is Unpacked. Today, we're exploring California's wilder side with Obi Kaufman. Obi is a naturalist, a writer, and an illustrator who has created a series of field atlases. Basically, they are these gorgeous books that blend science, art, and history to provide a deep understanding of the state that he and I call home. If you haven't seen them yet, they're filled with watercolor paintings and poetry and research, all pulled from his decades immersed in California's natural spaces. In this episode, he shares what exactly a field atlas is, what his work and artistic practice look like on a day-to-day basis, and the best ways to experience California through his lens. Obi, welcome to Unpacked. It's so nice to meet you.
Oh, it's so nice to meet you too. Thank you so much for having me.
I would like to start with your early days, your childhood, because when I was reading about you, it sounds like you had a fascinating childhood. Like you were born to two scientists, you entered the world of mathematics at an early age, and you also explored the California backcountry quite extensively. So what do you remember about those early childhood wanderings?
It's true. Yeah. My dad was a New Yorker, and he was a California transplant. He came here as the director of the Griffith Observatory. So his vocation was astrophysics. Okay. And my mother was a LA native, and she was a clinical psychologist for many, many decades. And so that is sort of the parental recipe that I have clanking around in my skull, right? And I'll tell you what, Dr. Kaufman's son was going to be a mathematician. So it's funny, I went through like my teenage years training kind of the same way that I work now, like big ream of 20 bond paper and a can full of sharp number twos. And this is how you did your math homework every night. And that's still how I make my books, except where I let my dad go was in this like idea of place. Okay. The aesthetic experience, the total experience of beauty on the landscape. And when I was 5 years old, my dad quit his job in LA and moved us up to Northern California. About 25 miles east of San Francisco is the lonely peak of Mount Diablo. And this became my mountain home and my home mountain. And to this day, I still live 15 miles away. I go as often as I can. It is a magical, mystical place of ecological wonder, endlessly inspiring as a young painter. And I am just blessed now, so many decades later, to have found like this voice in the publishing business where I find that I am not the only one who wishes to express their depthless affection for this most beautiful corner of the globe, this beautiful California.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that you sit down with a ream of paper and a container of freshly sharpened pencils. Is that really how you create all of your books?
It's true. Yeah, I do. I think there's this image of me sort of sitting in a field and doing all of this work.
I was picturing that, yes.
Oh, yeah. That's there's almost that like meme of just like,
yes.
like what people think I do, what my mom thinks I do, what my publisher thinks I do, and what I actually do. And like what I actually do is like, sit here in my in my lab, in my studio, and I go through a lot of paper. I make a lot of mistakes, right? Because all of these wildlife renderings, everything you see across these thousands and thousands of pages that populate my books, right? All of these, I try and make an illustration on every single page, right?
Wow, I know they're so
sort of like, I want every page to drip with color and soul, right? But I need the computer. Too. I work from photographic references and all of that kind of stuff. Like generally the rule of thumb, Aislinn, is like if it's really small, like a flower, or if it's really big, like a mountain, I'm probably doing it live. I do a lot of like going places and painting those places. And yet, but like if it's a mountain lion, mountain lions make terrible models, right?
Oh, I'm
so
sure.
like I need like the photographic reference. I need the anatomical reference to get it right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I would love to go back to kind of the starting point. What first gave you the idea to create a field atlas? Did you pitch it to a publisher? Did somebody come to you? Like, how did this whole evolution of your career, basically, and what you become known for come about?
Oh, I sure did. Yeah. Okay. So I've always been a bibliophile, right? I'm surrounded by books right now. I've got a couple of rooms full of libraries. It's like my tomb and my temple. It's like, my house is so well insulated because of all the damn books, right? So I'm like I've been a lover of books for a very long time. And I've been a lover of California for longer. How about that? And yet, so I sensed that there was like this whole retail habitat space, or as ecologists might call it, like this like niche opportunity for a book about California. And to use the phrase that I used earlier, like where every page just drips with color and soul. I didn't know what it was going to be. I just knew like with enough poetry, with well-rendered pieces of wildlife, I might be able to approach the story in such a way that might satisfy or gratify some part of me that is experiencing a lot of sort of modernist alienation from the more than human world. I think that's a common thing. Like, I want to be from somewhere. You know, my mother was born in this state, her mother was born in this state, and yet I still feel like I'm settling this place. You know, my publisher then, Heyday Books, is like, you know, they publish news from native California. They have a great portfolio of Indigenous authors. And here I am wondering how I can, one, be an ally, but two, like sort of engage the process, because it's not a destination. I'm not going to eventually like be Indigenous, right? But what I am doing is I'm engaging the process of like knowing this place as best that I can, right? And these books become evidence for that. And so what happened there, Aislinn, finally was like this idea that there is a character of California that I aim to describe, comprehensively survey, the character of which cannot be tackled in normal genre modes. Like a road atlas tells you how to go places, right? A field guide tells you what you're looking at. Like, I'm not really interested in doing either of those things, right? So I invented this genre called field atlas. You know, field atlases don't exist. What I did then was like, how about the how or the why of that mountain peak, or how that mountain's ecosystem actually works, or how it evolved, or what aspects of the more than human world have always been, continue to be, and shall always be, despite this like so successfully imposed urban veneer across the whole place, right? Because California remains strong. It remains dynamic in terms of biodiversity and in terms of ecological functionality, regardless of the hype of what you might hear on the nightly news, right? Like, I mean, there are miracles to be tended. I love to talk about California on that level. Like, what is the nature of conservation in California in the 21st century, and how do we navigate towards like the 22nd century?
Yeah. I mean, as someone who's only lived here for about 15 years, I feel like I've just barely started to understand this place that I do call home and imagine I'll call home for a long time. So where do you think you are in that understanding of place?
See, that's like the mystic well. Check this out. It's almost like California is so big, so deep, so beautiful, so romantic, so epic, so adventure filled that it's like this well of knowledge. It's like this drinking fountain. Okay, it's like a drink. It's a hole. It's filled with water, and I'm drinking from it. And you would think that the more that I drank from it, the water level would go down. But the magicness of it is the more I drink from it, the more there is to drink. Mm-hmm. I could make a map every day of some aspect of the world of California.
Yeah.
I could make 100 maps a day for the rest of my life. and not even touch the potentially infinite beauty of this place.
When you mentioned Mount Diablo, I mean, that could be a study of a lifetime, right? And it sounds like you have had that relationship, but that could just be a singular place of focus that you would never maybe fully understand.
It's so true. It's so true. There's an old ecologist's experiment where you can draw a 3-foot circle on the floor of a forest.
Yeah.
And you can look at that circle for a year, and you will see the whole forest pass through that circle. From the tiniest of mice to the largest of mountain lions, from the seeds that wash through the circle to the snow to the rain to the sun.
Yeah.
Like all of the living patterns of the landscape exist in that microcosm. And so that's kind of what I'm doing with California. I just drew a circle around California to describe not only processes across the biosphere and their evolutionary origins and their evolutionary futures, but also my own.
Well, that's a nice segue into this idea of conservation, which you've talked about a lot. What would you say conservation means today in California to you?
Well, it's evolving. It's not only evolving in the political space, but it's also evolving in my own sort of sense of identity. Like I think of my relationship, for example, to the word wilderness, which has really evolved over the past 15 years as I've been working through these books.
Yeah.
And thinking about the nature of California. And nature is another word that makes little sense in California because California exists historically, culturally, as no other place on the planet. There are more indigenous nations here speaking more languages than there are in any other comparable region of North America. Well, north of Mexico. This is an interesting correlation, but wherever you get a density of indigenous languages in any given area, you get a corresponding increase in biodiversity. And often that biodiversity is endemic, meaning that it exists nowhere else on the planet. And that's what we have in California, one of these world-class biodiverse spots across what is called the California Floristic Province, which is everything west of the Sierra Crest. And so that area of land, for several thousand years, like at least 6,000 years, which is like the mid-Holocene climate optimum, which is what paleoclimatologists might call this warming period in the middle of the Holocene when San Francisco Bay became a geographic entity on the landscape, for example, or even way far back before the Holocene. There's a lot of evidence that already at that point, intensive and very sophisticated landscape-wide stewardship techniques and technologies were applied everywhere across all of California. Okay, so we have a lot of people for a long time engaging the landscape, often using fire. And in so doing, I begin to question, where is this wilderness thing you're talking about? In fact, wilderness, there's no such word for wilderness in any of all of those languages that I'm talking about. There's no word for nature either, right? There's no separating the people from the land. And a lot of what 20th century conservation wishes to do is to remove people from the land, as if like people are the problem. Perhaps you've heard that refrain among some of your environmentalist friends, right? It's a common sort of anti-human ethic among 20th century environmental thought. Like humans are the primary pathogen. And certainly humans are a disturbance agent. My critique of that thinking is, of course, where does that thinking take you? Like, what sort of solution then are you implying?
Yeah.
My whole stance on conservation, which I think is like a pretty good heading, at least in the near future, is the reestablishment of these interesting kind of covenants. And I don't mean to like use explicitly a religious word, but I do want to imply some semblance of the sacred towards the relationship between humans and the more than human world. In California, these co-evolved systems work to propagate one another. Human harvesting, human tending to the landscape makes for abundant and fecund ecosystems. Under these regimes of what's called traditional ecological knowledge, which is what ecological philosophers and others might call the other tech, right? TEK, traditional ecological knowledge, which is evolved over thousands of years, is hyper local, and still very much a game piece on the board, despite centuries of attempted genocide, enslavement, and erasure of indigenous culture in California. So engaging that kind of thinking, and I tell you, the indigenous people have a bigger seat at the table in Sacramento than they ever have had in history. And and there's no reason to suggest right now that it's going to go any other way, despite the sort of spasmodic behavior of Washington or of X, Y, or Z politicians. What we've got is a trend towards that taking seriously of indigenous technologies. And I think that might be the serious future of conservation. And in so doing, we're going to need better poetry. Okay. And I don't mean poetry necessarily like verse, Aislinn. I mean like the vanguard of language. We're going to need better vocabulary to describe some of these relationships that we have to the land itself, because I don't think wilderness is cutting it.
I have never thought about it in that way, but it kind of reminds me of this thing that has always stuck with me. I interviewed a Maori storyteller many years ago, and he talked about how he introduces himself, and basically it starts with the land and then goes through his ancestors, and then he's kind of last. Like, it feels like that's the kind of poetry that we need, where it's like the land is who we are and it comes first in these ways. It's not separate from us.
Check this out. The founder of Heyday Books, my publisher, his name is Malcolm Margolin, and he wrote a book in 1974 called The Ohlone Way. And it's about living in the San Francisco Bay Area for thousands and thousands of years. At least the oldest shell mounds go back about 5,000 years, when really modern tribal identities begin to emerge across the Bay Area landscape here in California. And one of the things he talks about is like even the idea of freedom. The idea of freedom is very different in the indigenous mind and the indigenous mind of the local Californians here, where you have this idea of like a Miwok mother, right? Or an Ohlone mother. The last thing in the world that she would want for her son is for like him to like go out and find himself, right? Like that's just completely anathema to what a wealthy, healthy, socially adapted young man might need in his life. And to be a functioning part of this true social network, as opposed to this setting them up as I feel like I was set up in my own personal history towards this like existential crisis. Well, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? It's like, well, can't the trees tell me that somehow? Or can't the people in my life inform that construct, as opposed to me like pulling it out of, ex nihilo, out of like some whole cloth that I don't even understand the tools that I'm handed, right? So that's sort of like place-based thinking.
Yeah. You could even then go into kind of like the world of people using travel to find themselves, but we're not going to go there today. That's a whole subject.
I think that's cool. Yeah, I think that's cool. Yeah, the break from the regular stimuli is interesting. There was a lot of like migratory patterns in California life too. It's not like people were just like sitting in their home for all year round. You'd go up to the top of the mountains in the summertime, and you come down to the river mouths in the wintertime. So like there's a lot of moving around. There's a lot of travel in indigenous culture too. But travel is, especially as a guy who has walked thousands of miles of California and still tours California all the time, touring and speaking on my speaking tours, I can't get enough of the plurality of California culture, across the state, from the deserts of the Mojave to the tallest forests of the world in Humboldt County to the most massive forests of the world in the Sequoia Forest, to the volcanoes of Lassen and Shasta, to all of the people that live there and all of the cool, funky little towns. I mean, give me a night at a honky tonk,
Yes.
you know, whether we're talking about, you know, outside of Joshua Tree or maybe in the Malibu Mountains or somewhere in Santa Cruz. I'm a happy man.
Yeah, yeah. Well, will you share a few of your favorite places to walk and or tour and or honky tonk in California?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, yeah.
Honky tonk is a verb.
Well, I really like a lot of the named trails around the state. Like, for example, there's the Bigfoot Trail.
Oh,
The Bigfoot Trail goes from like Crescent City through the Klamath and Siskiyou Mountains around to like Eureka and Arcata. And on that trip, you pass through one area inside the Russian wilderness, which is one of the most magical spots on the planet. Okay. Arboreal scientists, people who are really into trees, call this place the Miracle Mile because there's 19 different conifer species. And a conifer is like everything from a spruce to a redwood to a cedar or fir, whatever. It goes on and on. But like there's 19 different species in this 1 square mile. Every tree is a different species. Like as you're walking through this grove, it doesn't happen anywhere else on the planet, you know? And that's one of these like these headline grabbers. And California's full of headline grabbers. You know, these like part of the effort of my books is to democratize all of California, right? People are like, what are your favorite spots in California? It's like, well, where are you? I'll tell you what's cool near you. But anyway, but I'll be more specific. We got the Bigfoot Trail, right?
How long is it?
Gosh, how long is it? I think it's about 200 miles.
Okay. Have you done all of it?
No, I'm not much of a through hiker. That's never really been like the calling to me. And I'm not much of a peak bagger either. You know, especially as I get long in the tooth here, I'm, 52 years old. It's like I prefer to like follow the contour lines than cross them. You know, I prefer to like walk on the level. I'm happy to be sitting next to a wildflower trying to identify it all day long and not necessarily, bagging that
Yes,
13,000 foot peak or whatever. But that being said, I do love the John Muir Trail. John Muir Trail. Yeah. So that's one that takes about a month in August. I've never done the whole trail in one, but I've done the whole trail. And that's like, gosh, what are you averaging there? Probably about 10,000 feet is what you average. But when John Muir called it the range of light, it's like, at sunset, it almost seems like you can see through the tops of those granite peaks. You know, it's like, I get that. They seem to be made of some sort of foggy diamond and is scattered with those mountain lakes. You know, I can feel my blood pressure going down just thinking about
me
that
too. Thank you.
Yeah. What else do I like? I like hiking the Sand to Snow region, Sand to Snow National Monument down there on San Gregorio, which is the tallest peak in Southern California. I love the San Bernardino Mountains and its sister peak, San Jacinto, across the highway there. Above Palm Springs, and then you descend down into the palm-filled groves of the Seep Springs and the migrating songbirds. I also love coast to cactus trails of San Diego County. San Diego County, perhaps the most biodiverse of all California's 58 counties, that you just walk through. You know, where I said the Miracle Mile up north is about conifer species. That's about habitat diversity. You can go from wetland to coastal sage scrub to California grassland to, X, Y, and Z habitat space in the course of, 10 miles. And that's amazing. True hidden gem. What else we got here? Oh, I love the Ventana Wilderness across Big Sur. That's where I cut my teeth as a young naturalist, is in Big Sur. And I'll tell you, Aislinn, like it was the 80s and I had thought nature itself was something that I just missed. There were no condors. There were no tule elk. There were no river otters. There were no sea otters. There were no white-tailed American kites. There were no peregrine falcons. Like the list goes on and on. Every single one of those species I've talked about right now is making a dramatic recovery. Like that is hope written in the land and written in the community, scripted by the community. That's good science. That is deep love. That is affection for these spaces, these processes, and these species that deserve our attention and are getting our attention. See, that's the thing. Also, every single one of our habitat spaces in California is either like endangered or even critically endangered. Although that's the case, we have a very low extinction rate in the state. All the pieces are still on the board. When I was talking earlier about like the miracles that can be tended, like that's the one. There's no laurels to rest on. There really isn't. But that's the situation right now. It's all still here. Keeping it all still here is the best story. It plugs into that best story we were talking about earlier. What is the most healthy world for our grandchildren like grow up?
Yeah. Do you feel more hopeful now than you did when you were first starting out?
Oh, 2026 sucks. I don't know. Where's hope? I can opine on this and discuss that. That being said, I got to tell you, Aislinn, like my podcast co-host is Greg Saris, and he is the chairman of the Federated Indians of the Great Rancheria out of Santa Rosa. And he and I sit down and talk about these kinds of things all the time. And he brings the Indigenous perspective. He's also a professor of literature at Stanford and UCLA too. So he's like he's a polymath. But we talk about these kinds of things, and he talks about the end of the world, right? And he says things like, oh yeah, my people have seen it before. And we'll see it again. It's like, can you imagine? Remember I was talking about how like the San Francisco Bay became a geographic entity. It became a thing about 6,000 years ago. During that time, during the Holocene climate optimum, the sea level on the coast of California was rising about 3/4 of an inch every year. Right now we think a lot about sea level rise, and it's like we've gained about 1.5 inches over the past 90 years, right? So like it's not the same rate at all, right? And can you imagine like sitting on like Sonoma Peak and watching the San Francisco Bay come in? Like, I mean, that must have been the end of the world on some level.
Absolutely.
Is there,
Yes, it is a reminder to step back and try to take in the big picture, but not try and not take action. I feel like that's the important part, is to not be hopeless and to still do what you can, especially on a local level.
Of course. I agree with that. Although I do believe that there are cultural stories that are being told that outweigh individual effort to such a degree that I see undue pressure, especially in like the young people in my life who are feeling just utter anxiety. Climate anxiety is a real thing that's like affecting kids. Like, to such a degree, it's like, I have to do better. It's like, what can I do? It's like, oh, honey, like your job is to live the best life that you can. Okay. Your job is to like enjoy existence. Like, please don't put this all on your shoulders, which is exactly where, quote unquote, the corporations want you to put the blame. That's why they invented things like the carbon footprint.
It's interesting. We've talked a lot about this in terms of like covering the aviation industry, and we did a story a couple years ago on like, if you're an environmentalist, should you be flying, right? Like the carbon cost of flying. And, we had one person who argued that like you should take alternate forms of transportation. And there was another person that argued that that's on the corporations. It's not on you on an individual level. And I think I net out somewhere in between. Like I do believe that there are things that are outside of my control that I don't need to worry about. But I also feel like there are things that I can do, and it makes me feel okay. Like it helps me feel like I am participating in this, the 10, I don't know, the mile that I spend most of my time in on a day-to-day level. Anyway,
that's exactly right, Aislinn. And I think there's a good point to be made there about something that might be counterintuitive. You often hear about like, should I fly? Should I do this? Should I do that? Like, I know a lot of people who have gone homesteading across California, right? Or living a rural life, which is an incredibly energy intensive proposition. Living in urban life, like I'm super happy being an urban coyote. That's just sort of like me. I get all the wildness I need here in like beautiful, scenic, flavorful Oakland, right? And I don't need to turn my car on. I don't use a lot of energy.
Yeah.
I can go, I got the best produce in the world that's made within a food shed that's all locally right here, that's walking distance, And so I work my ass off to live here.
Sure.
But I feel like I feel like my corporate overlords should be happy with me because in general, my footprint is very small.
Yes.
And I think those who live in cities have the opportunity to those local resources that can keep one small. So here I am, writing about the more than human world, writing about natural landscapes in California, and I'm a city guy.
Okay, well, after the break, Obi and I get into the beauty of notebooks, his nerdy confessions, and lots more California travel recommendations. This is going to be a big wildflower year. We'll be back with more World Cup trivia after this message from our sponsor, Visit Dallas. I love traveling to a new place or exploring a new facet of a destination I've been to before. And in our Unpacking Your Next Trip series, experts share the secrets of the places they call home. Experts like Noelle Laveau, who is getting her home city of Dallas ready for the World Cup and has a great cocktail recommendation.
When I first moved here, I didn't drink tequila, which I found would be a really big problem if I was going to stay here. So I adapted. I have to say, on what most Dallas locals will tell you at some stage of their life was their favorite margarita, and that's the Mambo Taxi from Mi Cocina. And so frozen is the way to get a Mambo Taxi. Salt on the rim. It's wonderful. You should probably only have 2, but you'll enjoy them.
You can listen to my full conversation with Noelle and a bonus guest at the end of the episode. And start planning your World Cup visit to Dallas at visitdallas.com. Now, back to the episode. I want to go back to your handwriting.
Oh.
It is so beautiful. So for listeners who have not seen your handwriting, we'll, include lots of links in the show notes, but tell us about it because it's marvelous. And in this world that's not very analog, it's so analog.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That's my secret motive. A lot of these kids I was talking about who are in my life, they have a really hard time reading cursive. And my handwriting is cursive, right? Because they don't teach cursive as they once did. If I could just sort of like modestly put forth that as like an ulterior motive to these books, I just was reading a study last week about how cognition is actually affected by handwriting something as opposed to typing. Like the conceptual understanding, that's what it is better served by handwriting than by typing. But yeah, you know what it was? Here's sort of a nerdy confession, Aislinn. Like I'm a lifetime Lord of the Rings fan. Like so, when I was really young, this actually there's a funny story that kind of ties this into the California Field Atlas too. It's like when I was young and trying to like learn Elvish, like J.R.R. Tolkien wrote, like how would Galadriel of the elves like write, and then imagining I could do that too. And so practicing. But I'll tell you, when I first broached the idea, when I first proposed, when I first submitted a pitch deck to Heyday Books for what would eventually become the California Field Atlas in like 2016, one of the things that was in that pitch deck was the map of Tolkien's like Middle Earth, right? Where you got the trees over here and the mountains over here. And, I'm like, I could do that for a real place that has way more monsters, way more adventure, way more romance, way more capacity for epic adventures than anything made up could ever have.
No wonder they said yes.
California, right? Yes. It's like that's sort of the thing. And so this book, hundreds of hand-painted maps describing how earth, air, fire, and water move around the state seems to me like it's the same sort of imaginative process, engaging this whole world, this whole history, this whole elaborate narrative that is right there, accessible, merging this conciliant thinking between the scientific and the aesthetic, offering this unity of knowledge which I think is like a footstone into figuring out the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And certainly the handwriting is part of that as an activity. You know, Aislinn, I pretty much have, you asked me about my days earlier. It's like I pretty much have it down to like 4 things I do in a day, which is like walking, reading, painting, and writing. Right. And there's almost like this synesthesia. It's almost like this equivocation between all of those different expressions. It's like when I'm walking, it's like the trees unfold around me like chapters. Like there is a arc to this habitat story, to this landscape story. Or when I'm reading, it's like my eyes are walking across miles of printed ink, right? Because that's actually what you're doing. Or, you know, and I even paint from left to right like I'm writing. And my writing for me is just like moving fluid around on the page too, which is like painting. So like there's all this like crossover between these ritual disciplines. This practice, God, I would love to not have an occupation, but have a practice, right? Where it's like, this is just what I do. And if there's a sort of a eyes on the prize type mission to whatever I think I'm up to here is that's probably the one.
I feel like we're going to see more people returning to paper or more analog forms of media, like younger folks. And I was really inspired. I was in Tokyo a couple of years ago, and there's that series of notebooks called the Traveler's Notebook or the Traveler's Collection. Are you familiar with those?
Just like the blank workbooks?
Well, workbooks, but then they have a bunch of accoutrements. I mean, it's a fantastic, like, sales technique.
Yeah. It's like the leather booklets and stuff, but they're blank. They're for you to fill in.
Yes.
It's like a brand name.
It's like, Travelers. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I've got a couple of them right here. Yeah,
yes,
totally.
yeah. So we were in the store in Tokyo, and I was blown away by the number of people that were probably 30 and under that were in that store shopping for these notebooks, like going nuts for them. I mean, I think it's really good marketing, really good, you know, like window shop, really good like displays. But I was inspired by that, and I bought a lot of notebooks.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
that's so cool.
It was
Have
really
you been
neat.
using them?
No.
Well, that's that practice. That's that practice thing, you know. Like,
yes.
like when I was probably about 20 years old when I decided, okay, I'm going to be an artist. If you're going to be an artist, you got to do it every day. There's no days off, ever. Even if you're on vacation. Why are you taking days off from being an artist? You can't do that. You have to make things. You have to work on your practice. You have to work. Like, this is like, I take that like deathly seriously. Like, to me, it's like sword fighting or something. It's like, you know, you have to be ready. You have to be trained.
You can't just show up to the sword fight.
It's a muscle that you will lose. I'm paranoid that I'll lose it if I stop doing it.
Yes. Well, no, okay. I have to share that the reason that we were in that store was because we were in Japan. I was actually on my sabbatical from Afar because I'd been at Afar for 10 years. So I got 6 weeks off. My partner and I hiked the Kumano-Koto Trail. And part of what we did along this whole journey was we were journaling. We were notebooking. We were scrapbooking. We were drawing. We were writing. And so I was like, I need to do this. I need to go back to return to this.
Right.
I was really inspired when I was a kid by a woman named Sark. She has these beautiful painted books, and I think she's based in LA. But anyway, we went to that store. I bought a ton of notebooks and pencils with great intentions to come home and journal every day. I haven't done that, but I have returned to the notebook in terms of my schedule and daily recording of what I'm doing, my priorities, things like that. So like you said, it's a practice, and it's felt really important to me. So I'm working my way back to the notebooks. But we are here to talk about California. And for your next books, are you able to talk at all about number 7 and number 8?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. So the first 6 books were the completion of phase 1 of the California Field Atlas series.
Oh, really? That completed phase 1? I didn't realize.
It did. Okay, so yeah, the first California Field Atlas. And then I wrote a book called The State of Water, Understanding California's Most Precious Resource. That was book number 2. And then books number 3, 4, and 5 were what I called the California Lands Trilogy. And that's the forests of California, the coasts of California, and the deserts of California. Okay, this is like the evolutionary past in the forests. Why are all these trees growing together? For example, I go through every single arboreal habitat type in California. And then like the evolutionary present, like the coasts of California, right? Which is like describing the 27 different ecological characters as I have categorized them from Del Norte County all the way down to San Diego County. And that coastline being very different from what it was and what it will be, right? This is a snapshot of the right now. And then the last book in that series is The Deserts of California. And that is a investigation really into the continuing desertification, aridification, increasing temperatures across the state, and how those contrast with what a mature desert ecosystem actually is. Mm-hmm. And then that whole series, all 6 books, was ended with The State of Fire, Why California Burns.
Yeah, okay.
Which came out about 3 months before Pacific Palisades and Altadena went up. And so that book's kept me really busy. But now I am in contract to write the second California Lands trilogy. And so this is what I'll be doing over the next 5 years. And so that's books 8, 9, and 10. Book 7 is coming out in the fall, and it's called California Inside Out, Mapping an Ecology of Mind. This is my first book of essays.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah, it's like a little manifesto. It's
that.
a little sort of like cry in the dark, if you will, but it's also a justification and a summarization of where I've been and where I'm going. Why does there need to be a second California Lands trilogy? Well, I'm calling out specifically the temporal aspects over the spatial aspects in this of ecological processes of California in these next 3 books, which will be my 8th book, which is The Origins of California. My 9th book, which will come out about 18 months after that one, which will be called The Cities of California. And then my last book, book number 10, is going to be called The Futures of California.
Wow.
And so these are 3 more California field atlases that are going to describe those respective subjects with my particular touch.
And have you already, I mean, I'm sure they're in process because they're just in you, but are they already in process on the page?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The manuscript for the 8th book, The Origins of California, has already been submitted. I'm painting a lot of creatures from the Pleistocene epoch, and I've been,
for example,
we go all the way back to pre-Cambrian California, which certainly did not exist 500 million years ago. What we know as California is really not much older than bipedalism itself, about 6 million years or so. The age of sort of proto-humans and the age of proto-California are roughly the same. About 6 million years or so when California began to resemble its current tectonic configuration. So that manuscript has been submitted, and the other ones are just going forward right now with tables of contents that are completed. So now I just need to actually fill in all the pages.
No big deal. Easy.
Right.
If you wanted people to see your California story in a place, where would you send them?
Well, it's super fun right now because we are sitting here in the middle of February and the rain is coming down.
Oh, what's rain?
And what that means, March, April, May, June, is wildflowers. Go find them. One of my favorite maps in the California Field Atlas is 50 of my favorite wildflower blooms across the state. Right? A wildflower bloom is a really impressive thing to behold on a number of levels. One of them is the species level, actually identifying this flower or that flower is an accomplishment. And flowers are nice. Unlike birds, flowers stay still. So you can really examine them and figure out what you're looking at. And there's some great field guides. But also, I wonder too about the nature of pollinators and what color is and how the perfumed landscape of chemical signals attracts all of these different ways of being, these precious invertebrates who are themselves experiencing a terrible crisis. How do these wildflower patterns, all of them, of course, are about attracting these pollinators? The bright purple of a lupin flower might be growing next to the bright orange of a poppy flower. That contrast between the purple and the orange, which are complements on the color wheel, right? To cause maximum contrast between these two flowers is a navigational aid for these more than human intelligences. So we have like all of these different evolutionary strategies for intelligently interacting with a habitat space. And I think that sort of like begins to open up this infinite network of relationships inside the ecological space. And that to me approaches something like the spiritual. I like that California, these wildflowers, it's all just here. I don't need to transcend anything. This is here. And I think that like putting that in the land, putting my spirituality in the land, if it exists at all, is the only place it really needs to go. So I would, to close out, it's just like, please take spring. We are 1 month away from the vernal equinox, and that is when you begin to see like the real sort of, they call them like early bloomers. You see the first violets coming up, and then there's this whole wave of the next 90 days. You can go to the same wildflower garden in March and see a completely different bloom than you will see in May. But you got to strike fast, especially in the desert. Like if you want to go see one of the super blooms in Anza Borrego Desert State Park or Death Valley National Monument, keep your eye out. You can go to like the California Native Plant Society or CalFlora and find out when these blooms are happening and try and get there. Because in the deserts, you probably have about a week window, 2 weeks. Lord knows I've gone too early and I've gone too late.
I know. I was in DC a couple of years ago and these poor tourists came in, the blooms. It was too early for the blooms, but it was seasonally appropriate. And they were like, why aren't the blooms here? And this poor front desk person was like, I'm sorry, I don't. There's no button that I push. Okay. So as an urban coyote, where would you send someone? Perhaps in Oakland, perhaps, in the, 29 Palms.
Right.
Maybe two places that you really love.
How about Big Sur? If you haven't been to Big Sur in a while, Highway 1's open again, and go support that little community. Don't linger for too long, but climb a mountain. If you haven't seen a California condor, go appreciate that and marvel at the fact that they still exist. In 1987, there was only 17. Now there's over 500. Or you can go to Pinnacles National Park. That's another good place to see condors. That's the smallest national park in California, and it's also the least visited, so that's pretty cool. But gosh, what a beautiful gem of wilderness that place is. You can take the High Peaks Trail, and you'll see a condor. When you see a condor, these California condors with the 10-foot wingspan, and they're flying right over your head, it is a different kind of feeling. That is no turkey vulture, my friend. That is a condor. And you get the sense that you're being checked out. You are being measured up, that you are no longer necessarily on top of the food web for this Pleistocene, anachronism deep in the 21st century. The condors are here. They have been here for millions and millions of years, and the fact that they still are is a testament to good love and good science.
Well, thank you so much for your time and sharing all of your wisdom and your books with us.
Oh, Aislinn, that was so much fun. Thank you so much for all of your attention, and I really look forward to seeing what you do with your traveler's notebooks.
Yes, I'll send you a photo when I finally break one open. Thank you so much to Obi Kaufman. This was part of our Unpacked Live series in partnership with Visit California. In the show notes, we've included links to Obi's work, his website, his books, and his travel suggestions, of course. And please check out our other Unpacked Live episodes featuring architect Barbara Bester and the landscape designer Roderick Wiley. Welcome to Unpacking Your Next Trip, brought to you by Visit Dallas. This June, Dallas will host 9 FIFA World Cup matches, the most of any host city. So it is an electric time to explore the city. And to unpack it all today, I'm joined by 2 Dallas locals who are going to share what it's like on the ground right now and all the amazing reasons to attend a match and stay a little longer. First, we have Noel Laveau, the Chief Marketing Officer for the North Texas World Cup Organizing Committee. And then we have Jonathan Thompson, a freelance journalist and, as you'll hear, an England native who now calls Dallas home. Jonathan and Noel, welcome to Unpacked. It's so nice to have you here. I'd love to start with the vibe. What does it feel like in the city right now, and what do you expect come summer?
Well, the city right now is already buzzing. Honestly, we celebrated 100 days out just this past Tuesday, and I just feel like we're on skis going downhill very, very fast to that June 11th date when the tournament kicks off. But it's really excitement.
Jonathan, how about you?
Well, I completely agree that there's a real sense of excitement about the city. People are talking about what tickets they have, what tickets they want, and what their plans are. I've certainly got a lot of local friends who are planning to take time off throughout the World Cup, discussing where we're going to watch the games. But aside from that, as an Englishman, I'm incredibly excited because England's first game is right here in Dallas.
So that begs the question, where are you going to watch these matches?
So I will say that I do plan to be in the stadium for at least one, even though I know I'll be working quite a bit during this time. But the other place is the Fan Festival, which is going to be in Fair Park. That is really where most people will experience the World Cup, both those that are coming to visit and those that live here. Only about 54% of the international travelers will have tickets to the actual matches. So the energy that's going to be at the Fan Festival is going to be like none other. So I definitely plan to see quite a few matches from there.
I've actually got tickets to 3 of the 9 Dallas games so far. I'm hoping to go to as many of them as I can. And I'm excited to be in and around the stadium because there's Texas Live right there, which is a big outdoor space with bars and live music and food. But in terms of bars and pubs, I think the key ones in Dallas will be the Harwood Arms, the Londoner, Happiest Hour. They're all sort of classic sports bars where the expats tend to meet anyway to watch Premier League or Champions League. And I think those places are going to be packed out.
Spoken like a real Englishman, because we were actually just with the English consulate and they said, hey, if we can find an Irish pub, that's where we will be. But then obviously, of course, we have a lot of folks coming from some of the Latin countries as well. And so there are a lot of really neat smaller bars and restaurants that are planning on getting engaged as well around Fair Park and in South Dallas.
Yeah, I can already feel the energy. It seems like such a fun time to be there. And of course, there is so much to do in Dallas beyond the World Cup. So why would you recommend that people extend their trips here?
If you're a history lover or a culture lover, there's tons to see. And we've got the DMA, Amazing Art Museum. There's the 6th Floor Museum, which is dedicated to dealing with the JFK assassination and the conspiracy theories around it. I love the Perot as well, which has a new exhibition, which is about to open next week, dedicated to football. The world of soccer, the science of soccer. And that's just the museums. Then there's all kinds of other stuff to do too.
I love to say that Dallas is the city that will surprise you. People still have this idea of Dallas that oftentimes is not accurate. And so they're surprised to see the diversity of the city, from the population to the neighborhoods that we have. I love to look at how Dallas communities are represented in the 48 nations that will play in the World Cup. We have communities that reflect all of those nations, and I think people are surprised by that. People quickly realize that when you start peeling the onion back when you're in Dallas, you start to discover Bishop Art, great shops and restaurants and Southern hospitality culture, to Deep Ellum, which is really our live music center, and lots of great bars and clubs, very eclectic neighborhood. Uptown, which has some really fantastic new high-end restaurants and experiences there. There's so much to do. And as much as people will be watching football or soccer, we're excited for them to experience other pieces of the culture that is here.
Yeah, I think that the best way to think about Dallas is a patchwork of adjacent neighborhoods. And that's the beauty of it. As Noel said, there's places like Bishop Arts, which is a really great, creative, lively neighborhood with art galleries and bars and cafes. And then there's Deep Ellum with all the live music. And my personal favorite neighborhood is Lower Greenville, which has all of these bars and restaurants all lined up along a strip, and they're all so much fun. It's really walkable.
You mentioned food, so I feel like we need to talk about that specifically. And the Michelin Guide Texas debuted in 2024, and Dallas features prominently. I think there are now 2 Michelin-starred restaurants there. So what are your favorite spots for everything from a casual meal with friends to a big night out?
So Jonathan mentioned Lower Greenville, so I would go to Goodwin's, would be one of
Yes.
the number one places that definitely a lot of fun, great food, nice speakeasy in the back, great cocktails. So it's a great place for meeting girlfriends for a birthday dinner or I think date night too. Lots of fun. That would be one of my favorites.
They have the biggest, fattest oysters I've ever seen.
Yes. Jonathan mentioned Lower Greenville. The change that has happened on Lower Greenville, it was always kind of a center of great restaurants, some of them that you sort of had to know. And now it has just blossomed, I think, with everything from HD Supply and the bars, as well as really great restaurants. So that's one place I'd say.
Opposite Goodwin's, there's another really, really good one called Sister,
Yeah, Sister.
which is Italian and very chic. Great food in there. And then further down the street, you're right, the bars. Truck Yard is my favorite. So it's like an outdoor beer garden, which looks a bit like a junkyard, but it's really a bar, and you can sit in old cars and enjoy your cocktails in the sunshine. And they have food trucks there as well. I mean, at the top end, you've obviously got the Michelin-starred places, and my favorite there is Mamani. I actually was lucky enough to try that out myself last week, and the food is out of this world delicious.
Ooh, can you tell us more?
Okay, so Mamani is an upscale French restaurant. It's in Uptown. It's new. It gained its Michelin star within 8 weeks of opening, which is an incredible feat. And it just is extraordinary food. It's the kind of food that once you've tasted it, it kind of lingers on the edge of your imagination for weeks afterwards. I loved the veal. I have an incredible asparagus dish that just melts in your mouth. And they also have this extraordinary dessert, which is like a kind of crusty, crunchy donut with cream inside. And it just kind of explodes in your mouth. It's just amazing restaurant. Really hard to get a reservation there. But the trick is to book for the 5 p.m. seating where there's normally availability.
I love that.
And that's a real treat. I think the Dallas dining scene is spectacular. It's up there with the best. And Bon Appetit magazine actually named Dallas the restaurant city of the year recently, ahead of Los Angeles, New York, Chicago. And I think a lot of chefs come here because it's cheaper. It's cheaper to rent premises than it is in Los Angeles or New York. It's cheaper to hire staff. You can have more space, and you can try things out a little bit more. You know, there's not the intensity that there is in those coastal cities. So the food scene here is a big draw. And when I speak to people from London or from New York or from Los Angeles that are living here or visiting here, they all say the same, that they're blown away by the food scene.
What are some of the other cuisines that you think travelers, especially people coming from overseas, might be surprised by, and some of your favorite places to eat?
So we know Japan is going to play a game here. My favorite Japanese restaurant is Namo. Absolutely amazing restaurant in West Village. It's very small. You might not find it if you weren't looking for it, but trust me, you want to go there because it is spectacular food.
Love it. Noelle, how about you?
You know, it's funny. When I was at Visit Dallas as a chief marketing officer and doing focus groups around the nation, we always thought they'd say Tex-Mex, and rarely did they say Tex-Mex. And then I started realizing that you kind of have to understand Texas to understand Tex-Mex. So it was a funny experience, because as someone who is a transplant to Texas, when I travel, when I come home, the one thing I want is Tex-Mex. You kind of miss it when you're other places. So I'm going to say they should try Tex-Mex. And I think that before they leave here, they'll be saying the same thing. Like, before I leave, I have to have more Tex-Mex.
Yes.
Of course, washed down with a margarita.
That is true. And, you know, when we're in England, my wife, after about 8 or 9 days, starts to crave Tex-Mex. It's really odd. But when you've been brought up on that, I mean, it's kind of the ultimate Southern comfort food, isn't it? And I think people forget that the Tex bit of the Tex-Mex, in the sense that it's the kind of time-honored Texan ranching ingredients, isn't it? Like beef and cheese
Yeah.
and wheat. And then you put that together with the flavors of northern Mexico and all the spiciness and the gooiness. And it's just, it's delicious. I'm feeling hungry for Tex-Mex just talking about it. All the sizzling fajitas and the crispy enchiladas. Wow. And actually, my favorite place for Tex-Mex is Las Palmas in Uptown.
Okay, you took mine. Las Palmas is my
sorry.
absolute favorite.
I love it.
They have incredible quesadillas. Their guacamole is out of this world, and they make fantastic margaritas. I mean, you cannot go wrong at Las Palmas at the bar or sitting with friends. I would say for our visitors, it's great because you sit down in a Tex-Mex restaurant and you're going to have chips and salsa or guac right away that you're not going to pay for. And so it's an experience that when we go other places and they try to charge us for chips and salsa, we are all very confused by that. So definitely part of our Southern hospitality.
And let's not forget that the frozen margarita was invented here.
It sure was.
We know how to do them.
Well, before we move on to or back to the frozen margarita, Noelle, are there other cuisines or places that you like to go outside of the Tex-Mex and the barbecue? You've made a great case for experiencing that, but anything else that you feel like represents kind of a more surprising side of Dallas cuisine?
Well, this is where I think it gets interesting in regard to the neighborhoods of Dallas. You know, if you go a little bit into North Dallas, closer to Richardson, you find some fantastic Chinese food, Vietnamese food. The populations in the community have really started dictating the food that is there. So it's about exploration, I think, when it comes to the food scene here. And it is tied to the neighborhood in a lot of ways, which you expect in Chicago. I think it's kind of unexpected here in Dallas, but it is true that is the way it is too.
I mean, there's literally every type of food you can imagine. I was actually researching this for a story yesterday, seeing if I could find a restaurant for all of the teams that are playing in Dallas.
Oh, that's fun.
And believe it or not, there are restaurants for every team, including a Jordanian restaurant, which I did not expect to find. And obviously lots of Japanese restaurants. There's a Croatian restaurant, and there's an Austrian restaurant as well, which looks like a lot of fun.
Well, we have to talk margaritas. You both brought them up, and I have heard about the Margarita Mile, which apparently will be transformed for FIFA. So what are some of your favorite spots to grab a margarita, frozen or not?
So when I first moved here, I didn't drink tequila, which I found would be a really big problem if I was going to stay here. So I adapted. And I adapted, I have to say, on what most Dallas locals will tell you at some stage of their life was their favorite margarita, and it's the Mambo Taxi from Mi Cocina. But what's really fun now is that there's a Mi Cocina right down in the middle of downtown at Clyde Warren Park, so the deck park that is there. And so frozen is the way to get a Mambo Taxi.
Got it.
Salt on the rim. It's wonderful. You should probably only have 2, but you'll enjoy them.
What happens after you have 2?
Someone takes your car keys away.
Yeah, definitely your car keys, and usually they might shut you down if you're getting to number 3. So it's always a good time for a Mambo Taxi. But that's my favorite, frozen for sure.
I love that.
I mean, I've got to say that I'm still an Englishman, so I am a beer drinker. However, when I do, on the rare occasions I do have a margarita, I like to go to HG Supply Company, which is on Lower Greenville. It has a great roof terrace with fantastic views of downtown, and they do a really nice beetroot margarita, which sounds like it shouldn't work, but it really does.
Interesting. Salted rim for that too?
Oh, yeah, always.
Yeah, I think I could get behind this.
You can get behind it. Tahini on the rim sometimes, a spicy margarita. Lots of great places to get a margarita. It's definitely our signature drink.
So you're drinking margaritas, which means that you're out enjoying the nightlife. And there is such a special energy during FIFA. So for people who want to go out in the evenings and celebrate, where would you send them for maybe live music, for dancing, for another cocktail?
So I think there's a lot of different places, again, for this experience, which I think is what, like we've said, is fun about Dallas. Obviously, for live music, there's going to be several places in Deep Ellum. It's largely our main collection, and then also on Lower Greenville, and those kind of connect through to each other. But there's some little unexpected spots. The one I would say is an unexpected spot for jazz is called Chocolate Secrets, and it's over on Oak Lawn. Great little place. They make all of their own handmade chocolates and truffles. So that's not a bad thing to go along with jazz, and great wine as well. So on Thursday nights and Friday nights, they always have jazz music, and it's just a great environment to be in. You feel very transported.
Amazing. All right, Jonathan, how about you? Where would you send your friends?
I mean, Lower Greenville is the ticket, I would say, just because there's so many options there within easy walking distance, and you can just go from one bar to the other, and most of them will have big screens showing the games as well. So in terms of hidden gems, there is a little spot called the Balcony Club in Lakewood, which is in an old Art Deco movie theatre, and they have live music in there as well. It's a really cool small club, which is very much a local secret, but it's opposite one of the best football pubs as well, which is the Blackfriar. That's a big Barcelona pub, which has big doors that open out onto the street. So a lot of the Spain games will probably be screening down there, and then you could go on to the Balcony Club afterwards and enjoy the music. I mean, honestly, this place is full of spots to go out. We haven't even talked about the rooftop pool bar scene, because a lot of the hotels have these great rooftop bars with pools. If the games are during the day, you could be in the pool with a margarita watching the game on a big screen. And that, to an Englishman, that sounds like heaven.
I like how he said rooftop bars with pools. They're actually rooftop pools with bars, but
Right.
But it does feel like a rooftop bar that happens to have a pool. That is definitely what it feels
Things
like.
get mixed up after the second margarita.
All right. Well, I would love to close with your recommendations and your favorite ways to fill your daytime hours, aside from the pools and the margaritas.
Well, you can't miss shopping. Dallas is still a shopping mecca, from the Galleria Dallas to North Park, Highland Park Village. And there's quite a few shops that have opened up in downtown as well. We've got a lot of great Western wear, very high-end brands that people will love. There's also the Arboretum, which is beautiful. The Dallas Arboretum is a wonderful place to experience nature. It's also got a great children's garden there now too as well. Something very different and unexpected, outdoorsy, White Rock Lake. You can walk around the lake. I trained for a marathon. It's about a 10-mile run around there. And so people are out there crewing and boating, something else that people oftentimes don't expect to see in the Dallas terrain. We have quite a few trails. The Katy Trail, which runs through downtown. You'll see people running, jogging, biking, walking their dogs. There's a lot more outdoor things to do than people expect.
All of those things are fantastic tips. I really like White Rock Lake in particular. And you can experience lots of different things there. You can go kayaking there, but you can also take these sunset catamaran trips where you get on the catamaran and they serve you champagne and snacks, and you just sail towards the skyline as the sun goes down. And it's really, really nice. Another thing is that Dallas is home to America's largest urban arts district. I think it spans like 20 city blocks. There's all kinds of theaters and performance centers like the Wiley Theatre, the Winspear Opera House. These are all world-class venues, and there's always something happening there. So you can normally pick up cheap tickets to really big shows on the morning of the show. So that's something that people might want to consider on days when there is no football.
Yeah, it's a great tip.
But I mean, honestly, there's so much to do here. You could easily plan a week or 2 weeks here for vacation without the World Cup. And then you throw the World Cup into that as well with this enormous football festival happening here. It's going to be just so much fun.
It does sound like so much fun. So thank you, Noelle and Jonathan, and thank you, listeners, for joining Unpacking Your Next Trip. You can find more Dallas inspiration and start planning your next trip at visitdallas.com.